I'm Julian Cheyne. I'm a former resident of the Clays Lane housing estate. I also write for a website called Games Monitor, which seeks to demythologise the Olympics. Well, Clays Lane was a housing estate for single people. It had a particular purpose, mainly young people, quite a lot of homeless people, and also a considerable number of students. And it was mainly shared housing, mixture of 10, 6 and 4 person houses, and it also had 50 self-contained flats or bungalows. And I had a bungalow and I lived there for about just over 16 years. You can't idealise places, so it's not, there were good and bad things about Clays Lane. The thing which was most enjoyable was that it was a very sociable community. It had a very, very wide range of nationalities and ethnic groups there. I mean, I counted 40 different nationalities, and in fact there were probably more. So it was incredibly diverse, and it was a sort of place where you could get to know people very easily if you wanted to. I mean, you could, of course, hide away in your room and not talk to anybody, and there were people who did that, but it was very easy to get to know people. And if you were looking for company at 2 o'clock in the morning, you could probably find it, because there were nearly always people up and about, being a lot of students, young people and so on. So people had very diverse activities, very diverse lifestyles. And it was the sort of place where people did, at one time, they had a lot of parties. I'm not a great party goer, I have to say, but people did have big parties there, and it was a very sociable place. It was a place where people could, you could set up and you could get a job which might not be very well paying, and you'd be able to afford to live there. I know people now who've moved out and they're now paying a rent in, say, a council flat somewhere. Basically, all they managed to do is to go to work, go home again, go to sleep, and go back to work. The way that the estate was laid out, it was laid out in a series of courtyards, or 10 courtyards. So it also kind of, in fact, it was a comment made by the Fluid people who did a survey of the estate. And one of the things they commented on was the way in which the architecture sort of assisted the creation of a community. But as we are a very small community, and most people never heard of us, we were just basically buried. And so it never made the story. I mean, I actually had an argument with a Guardian journalist just the other day on Twitter, and said, why didn't you cover us? And he sent me a couple of links and said, yeah, we covered you. And then I had to point out that the links he'd sent me, 2 of them related to traveller sites, because there were 2 traveller sites on the Olympic Park, which the travellers were also moved. And the other one said that the people who had been moved had not struggled. They'd all just sort of disappeared. It's just extraordinary statement. I mean, we went through the whole of the compulsory purchase inquiry, objecting to it. We went through court action. We went to the High Court and did judicial review. To say that we didn't struggle is just simply ridiculous. Okay, we didn't sit in. That's what he meant. Nobody resisted eviction. It was completely pointless to sit in your house and wait to be evicted. I mean, this is the Olympics. There would be police and bailiffs in a moment, and you'd be out on your street. And of course, they were threatening that if you did sit in, you would lose some of your compensation. So, this is the attitude really that journalists had, was they were looking for some kind of dramatic action, like, an action about roads protests and things like that. This is a completely different case. You have every single level of authority, national government, city government, local government, they're all supporting this project. There is no dissent in the political system. One of the things that Mayor Livingston said was that he expected, or the LDA expected, because the LDA was his development agency, that the LDA expected that we would receive an improvement in our accommodation, in the space, the quality of the accommodation, the standard of the accommodation, and the amenities. Now, there's absolutely no way that I think virtually anybody received an improvement in terms of amenities. The Mayor of Newham, I bumped into him in Stratford Town Centre once and asked him if he'd like to come and visit us, and he said yes, but then he didn't. And later I heard from 2 different sources that he'd been calling us peasants.